Let's preview the Cleveland Guardians for 2026 up next on Fantasy Baseball Today. Welcome to On the Beat, our mini team preview series here at Fantasy Baseball Today. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Justin Lada, co-host of the Locked On Guardians podcast. Make sure to give him a follow on X at JL_baseball. Let's start with the Guardians offseason. All right, let's move on. No, I'm just kidding. There's not really much going on. I mean, we were talking beforehand. It's the Guardians. They have a good team. They have a good manager. They find a way to make the playoffs. Wish that they would put more around Jose Ramirez. Speaking of Jose Ramirez, they did get an extension done that will keep him on the team through 2032. They made some bullpen additions, Sean Armstrong, Colin Holderman, but you look at this lineup, and obviously it could use some help. So, I mean, how do you wrestle with that as a Guardians fan / content creator? It kind of feels like this is where they wind up every year.
It really is. Yeah. This is what we do every year. And if you go back and look at their history of free agent signings, it actually isn't that good. Like, we go back all the way to like Nick Swisher, Michael Bourne, Edwin Encarnacion worked out, Josh Bell and Mike Zeno just a couple of years didn't work out. It wasn't the best market. They could have used some platoon bats that would have helped them this year. Maybe they could have made some trades. I think Brendan Donovan was a guy that was on our list, but didn't quite fit what they were looking for. So once again, it's going to be a slew of young guys. They're trying to figure out how to help out Jose Ramirez. It's going to be, Kyle Manzardo and Chase DeLauter, and will it be Travis Bazzana? There's George Valera, CJ Kafis. And to be fair, a lot of people do like their crop of hitting prospects. Like, there's some other guys that are down there too that are on their way. And they didn't want to block those guys, which I get to an extent, but you don't want to rely on all these young guys, especially guys like Chase DeLauter, who perpetually get hurt every year. So they could have used some insurance policies, I think, for all that kind of stuff. And I think they tried to do that, but it's difficult to find the right fit when they don't want to block certain young players, I guess.
Let's get into some big fantasy questions here for the Guardians. You mentioned his name a few times already. And look, to their credit, they do have a lot of young players, young hitters in this lineup that maybe they blossom. Maybe they take that step forward and, everything kind of comes together this year. Chase DeLauter being one of them. He's a talented player. I saw him out in the Arizona Fall League a couple of years ago, and he was one of the best players there. Just clearly the approach as a hitter, everything is there. He's got power and speed, but lots of injuries here. Do you believe that Chase DeLauter is an everyday player with the Guardians right away as long as he's healthy?
Yeah, as long as he's healthy, he'll be playing, I think, almost every single day. I do think they'll give him some maintenance days, just given his injury history. So, you have a good opportunity to rest someone like that. If he's in the lineup, you can rest him against Tarek Skubal or Cole Reagans, right? Like, at least early on, you want to do that. As provided Tarek Skubal's on the Tigers still. Who knows how that's going to go? But I think those are natural maintenance days you can do for him to keep him off his feet, where he wouldn't succeed anyway. You want to play him against, I think, lesser lefties than that to get him acclimated, and they're going to need his bat if he's healthy, no doubt about it. I think he is a talented player. So I would say, 70 or 80% of the time he should be in the lineup, provided the body is holding up, which, is always a question for him.
Let's talk about Gavin Williams, because he was a polarizing player to assess for fantasy last season, because for most of the year he had the results, the top line, the ERA was good, but some of the underlying stuff, he was getting lucky with runners on base. He was still walking way too many batters. Down the stretch, the skills legitimately took a step forward. He was getting more whiffs. The walks came down. He changed the pitch mix up a little bit. He looked good in that lone playoff start against the Tigers as well. How much do you trust what we saw from Gavin Williams in that final month of the season heading into 2026?
I mean, you did have a much more ideal strikeout to walk ratio. He was in the 20% range, which is what you'd like to see. The stuff, all the stuff models really like his pitch mix right now. And like you mentioned, he changed up his pitch mix late in the year. So he reduced the usage of the four-seam fastball, which is absolutely getting obliterated. He's got 3 fastballs, but only one of them is any good, the cutter. So I think it's going to depend on his pitch mix too. And you also have to take into account that in September, Cleveland was running a 6-man rotation, and not that Williams needed any help with his velocity. The velocity was the same whether it was July or September. But you also wonder too, how much that extra day of rest helped him. So I'm going to buy in a little bit here based on September, because like you said, the results were there. The skills have always been there. That's the kind of pitcher he should look like, right? That's what he should be doing. But I am tepid to agree about like how good it's going to be. So probably somewhere between like what you really want to see, but not quite like September. So like I'm buying in just a little bit, but I'm going to expect some regression from a year ago too, just because control and command is always going to be an issue for him.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll be back right after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Welcome back in. We're here previewing the Cleveland Guardians with Justin Lada. Let's get into a sleeper for this upcoming season. Who do you have?
Well, there's a lot of young guys that are going to be on this roster throughout the season. I would first hitter I'm going to go with is Juan Brito. I think he would have debuted last year had he not gotten hurt. He had a hamstring issue that he needed surgery for. He also had a broken thumb earlier in the year. He would have been up at some point last year. The numbers are good. Like, he's a switch hitter. They need that. He can draw some walks. He's got some pop. He's got an optimized swing for getting the ball in the air. So I think they're going to want to see him. There's talk about Gabriel Arias moving around. They seem like they're going to install Rocchio back at short, which is odd for defense. And Juan Brito's defense is not going to keep him in the lineup, so be aware of that. Not much of a runner, but again, OBP, a little bit of power. He is a switch hitter, so that could help him out a little bit. And again, I think they want to see him before Travis Bazzana debuts because they needed to see him last year. And then I also want to point out for people looking for closers, Sean Armstrong has closing experience. And I think given how the Guardians operate, they might use him in some save situations. To deploy Cade Smith earlier in games a little bit when there's high leverage opportunities. But also, if they don't work out an extension with Cade Smith beforehand, we know saves drive up costs in arbitration, and Cleveland will want to try to keep that number down. So wouldn't be a shock if Sean Armstrong is up for, stealing a couple saves here and there from Cade Smith.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty big news for us, for fantasy players, because Cade Smith, I mean, the ADP, the market on him right now is he's being drafted as a top 5 closer. I mean, people are expecting him to come in here and basically pick up where Emmanuel Clase left off and just be this elite closer. And there's no doubt, as a pitcher, I mean, he is amazing. He's one of the best relievers in baseball. I mean, strikeouts and K to walk and all those types of things. And he's obviously really talented. But your point about the finances and the way that the Guardians operate, there is a chance that, maybe they do deploy him in some earlier situations throughout the course of a game. You mentioned Travis Bazzana there. Just a quick follow-up on him. When do you think we see him, if at all, throughout the course of this upcoming season?
I do think the plan is to see him at some point this year, given how the offseason went and just given that he would have been also, on the cusp of a debut last year too if he not had 2 injuries. Same with Brito. So I would say it's not an out of the realm of possibilities. It happens in June. It depends on how things go at second base, how much of a leash they want to give Juan Brito if they see him. And then if Travis Bazzana takes off in AAA, if he's healthy this year, I do expect he'll be just fine. So I would say tepidly June is when I expect to see him.
All right, let's go over to a breakout for the Guardians this season. Who do you have there?
I've always been a huge fan of Joey Cantillo, back to his days as a Padre, actually, prospect. And then when Cleveland acquired him, he's always had some health issues, which is always something to look for. He's had velocity issues before too. Control issues are a problem for him, but kind of like Gavin Williams, he had a nice bump down the stretch there. You have to be cognizant of the 6-man rotation, but he's had better velocity before. He talks about working on that this coming off season, or at least he has so far. Stuff Plus models like him, I've always liked to change up in the curveball. They're both swing and miss pitches. He's out of options, so he has to be on the roster. So I think that's going to give him a lot of leeway. I think there's a possibility for a mid-rotation starter there as long as he stays healthy, which, again, I think you could say that about anybody, but he does have an injury history. And if you want a hitter on those side of things, like, I don't really have a hitter for you as far as a breakout. I've seen Bo Naylor have great Septembers, like 2 different years of his career. You always need catchers in fantasy, especially if you're in a 2-catcher league. I'm not personally, but he did make a stance change, which could be something to stick your teeth into a little bit. And it's a make or break year for him, honestly. So he's got to hit the ball well. So I could see that being something that helps him a little bit.
All right. Big thanks there to Justin Lada, co-host of the Locked On Guardians podcast. Make sure to give him a follow on X at JL_baseball. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to our full-length podcast, Fantasy Baseball Today, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to our On the Beat team preview series, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.